Hey everyone, welcome to First Time Dad. I'm joined today by Johnny Wakefield, and he's going to talk a little bit about his role as a stay-at-home dad. So why don't you just introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. My name's Johnny Wakefield. I am a stay-at-home dad, a dad 2 times over. I consider myself a full-time stay-at-home dad, but I've had a bunch of different part-time jobs in that meantime, just trying to keep myself busy. I have 2 daughters. One is 5 and one is 4 months old. I'm sure we'll get into some more details about them here as we go.
Yeah, perfect. Let's just jump right into it. Since I didn't get to really do a first episode because my first episode was kind of a trial run.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you how you felt when you found out you were becoming a first-time dad.
Yeah, so that was 2012. I got married also in 2012 and moved in 2012. So it was kind of a crazy year. But when we found out, we were pumped, like just crazy excited, also terrified. We got pregnant the first time we tried, which sounds questionable, but like it was the first time we actually made an effort to make a baby. Yeah. We won't get into the details for the kids. And we're really surprised by that because we assumed that we would have some trouble. But we still felt like we were ready. We got married in our late 20s. We were excited about it. But we didn't have jobs. We didn't have a place to live past the end of the month. And so our lives were just chaos. And we were really excited, but we decided to move to Detroit from Columbus, Ohio, to try to find a place that we could land and stay forever. And everyone looked at us like, why are you moving to Detroit for that? We liked Detroit at the time. And so we moved there, wanted to stay somewhat close to her family all in Ohio. But becoming a first-time dad was terrifying because we're going to have this kid in a place where we don't have family or friends or... yeah, it was just a lot. But we were pumped. For the first one, we were really, really just excited that it had happened at all. Kind of like basking in the glow of creating life or something, I don't know.
Well, that's awesome. How did you transition into becoming a stay-at-home dad?
Yeah, so we moved to Detroit, and I was working at the Boys and Girls Clubs of America before and after school care, summer camps, that sort of thing. My wife got a teaching job after giving birth to Lily, and so we had a decision to make, like which one of us was going to stay home, or were we going to put our daughter in daycare in a new city where we didn't really know anybody. So we decided one would stay home, and then we looked at like, well, neither of these jobs make any money. Teaching has been her lifelong dream, so I'm going to stay home. And it fit us better. Like I'm an introvert more than she is. She gets energy from being with people. So it just made sense for us. We would give it like a year trial and then kind of see how it went. And then that first year was terrible. I liked being a dad. During naps in that first year, you can watch all the Netflix shows you want. But then also like you're changing diapers at 2 a.m. You're falling asleep on the floor at 4 a.m. So it was just a difficult year. And in Detroit, it snowed during the school year. So it's like the worst winter in recorded Michigan history or something. And there were 18 inches of snow for 6 straight months.
Oh.
So it was just a difficult year as a first-time, now stay-at-home dad. So we decided to make a move, and that's how I met you and all the Charlotte people. That summer, we decided to move to Charlotte to get out of the snow and to just kind of give us a new chance to start over in a place that we thought maybe we could make a long-term home. And now we're here in Charlotte, and we have.
That's awesome. So because you said earlier that you consider yourself a full-time stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
When did that transition happen? I know that you said you started in Michigan as a trial of being a stay-at-home dad,
right.
But now you're full-time, so when did that happen?
Yeah, once we got in Charlotte, we decided, I think if you view being a stay-at-home dad as like, well, I'm going to take care of the kid, but I'm going to play a lot of video games. Like, that's not exactly how it works. So I had a year to kind of embrace what it meant to be a stay-at-home dad as I watched Breaking Bad and those things on Netflix in 2012. But then, as Abby was a teacher, I found that I also had some free time to pursue things I liked. So I got involved in neighborhood work. Did a lot in our first ward neighborhood in Charlotte, and then applied for a grant to do neighborhood work. and then worked some in the summers on neighborhood work. So I was able to find something that I really love to do without worrying so much about my career or our income, because I was a full-time stay-at-home dad, and that's kind of how I see myself even now, 5 years later, that like my calling, my life is about being a dad to these now 2 girls. So all the like right now I work at St. Martin's Episcopal Church, which is where we are tonight. It's a job and I love it, but it's also part-time and extra because my real job is being a full-time stay-at-home dad.
So what have you learned in your years of being a stay-at-home dad, with especially now that you're a stay-at-home dad twice over? You have 2 babies for 2 kids. What have you learned, or what are you using this second time around that you gained from the first time around?
Oh, that's good. So the first time around we assumed would last maybe 2-3 years, and then we'd have another kid, and then we'd look at daycare or like grandparents or something. But then we couldn't get pregnant again. And so that like a battle with infertility lasted 2-3 years before we had Nora this summer. So I talked about being kind of in shock the first time. We were in shock again the second time, and like thrilled that it had happened after all these years. But I had kind of moved on. Like once Lily, our oldest, hit preschool age, I tried to like take on jobs and like get back into a career mindset and say, okay, she's going to be in school most of the day, I can go back to work. And then Nora hit this summer, and it's like, nope, reset button, you're back. So again, I'm full-time stay-at-home dad. I am trying to remember some of the stuff from 5 years ago, but you forget about teething or the 4-month sleep regression or how many diapers you change. Like, they're just things that you forget over 5 years, probably because your mind doesn't want to deal with it, so you just kind of black it out and pretend it never happened. But lessons, man, there's so much that like you learn as you watch your kid grow up in front of you that you think, okay, I'm going to do this differently next time. And at the same time, like, no, like kids are different. So Lily was really chill and calm most of her life until bedtime, and then she freaks out and goes just bonkers and doesn't want to go to sleep. Nora has been screaming for 4 straight months, and I'm very, very tired. And she's battled like sickness and just a bunch of things that make it's just different. So second time around is different, and at the same time you're dealing with another child who is still needing attention and still needing love and everything. So I don't know if that really answers.
No, that's great. No, that's really great. But about that last point, since your oldest is now going to school, you don't have to care for her at the same time you're caring for your baby.
Right, which is
during
nice.
the day.
Sure.
Does it feel like you have a lone child again during the day, at least until school lets out?
Yeah. So I drop off Lily at school at 9, and then I pick her up at 4. So that's 7 hours where I try to balance naps and bottles, and then hopefully during those naps I get like an hour to take a shower and do dishes, and maybe accumulated 2 or 3 hours during the day where I get to like be myself again a little bit. But yeah, for those 7 hours it feels like, all right, it's just the 2 of us. Like, let's figure out what it's like to raise this child and for her to be a human and like figure all that stuff out. For Lily, though, for 5 years she was an only child, and so she got all of our attention all the time. And then the summer comes, and yeah, she's excited for a baby, but man, as soon as she doesn't get our attention now, it's like, what? I'm your kid. Like, play with me. What do you mean you won't play with me? I think she assumed having a sister would mean that she had friends to play with. Sure. But babies are not friends. Babies are poop factories, and that's about all they are. So once they had like one and start doing things, it's a little better. But yeah.
Do you want the optimistic question or the pessimistic question first?
Let's go with the first one, optimistic.
Optimistic. What has been some great things to being a stay-at-home dad?
Seeing your kid grow up. I think Abby and I both felt like we couldn't. Most people have to do it. Most people choose to do it. They want to have some time, and I totally understand that choice. But being able to see every minute of your day with your kid is really cool. As parents, we still don't have family here, so we don't get babysitters very often. So even separating for that little time is difficult. But we have a friend who just had a kid, their second kid in in 14 months. And so they have 2 babies, essentially, that they have to drop off at daycare, otherwise they can't breathe. So the best part about it is that I get to spend all day with a child I created, and there are that I helped create. Actually, Abby did most of the work there. But like this idea that when she's 18 and going off to college, like you don't get that time back, and it's a cliche that everyone hears and says when they're older, but it's true. And so when Nora is screaming at 3 in the morning, usually Abby takes that actually, but when she's screaming at 3 in the afternoon, that's mine, and I have to say, okay, like when she's 20, we'll wish that she were back in this point, right? So it's like this forcing yourself to mature thing where you're like, okay, let's look at it with the long-term vision a little bit.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
But let's flip that question.
Yeah.
What is a not so great thing about being a stay-at-home dad?
I think the not so great thing probably applies to just being a dad too. Like your life is no longer yours. And that's both beautiful in some senses, but also like, man, I want to go to the Hornets game. Like, why can't I go to the Hornets game tonight? Well, you can't because you have 2 kids to take care of, or 1 kid to take care of, just however it may be. So whereas before kids, Abby and I had, about a year where we were married without a kid, and a year and 2 months. We could do things we wanted to do.
Right.
And as soon as baby entered the picture, it was like, well, that's not as much fun to go out to eat anymore. It's not as much fun to do this. And there's actually a commercial that I always think about that I saw maybe during a Super Bowl a few years ago, where it was this family who said, we'll never do that, we'll never do that, we'll never do that. And then at the end of each clip they do. And now Abby and I are talking about moving to the suburbs. It's like, no, like, hold on a second. Like, we need a bigger driveway if we want another car. Like 5 years ago, we were talking about not owning cars and living in Paris or something. Like, we're just not there anymore because your life isn't yours. It's committed to seeing these 2 kids grow up in a good way, in a good school, in a good place, all of that.
That's good. That's really
it's good, but it's terrible. Like, man, I would want to go to Paris or go to Leeds for a soccer game next month. Like, I can't do these things.
I definitely have those moments where now that Noah's on the way, that I'm definitely like, oh yeah, I should savor some of these moments, or we should really take advantage of some of these opportunities, because once the baby comes, we don't know if those are ever come back.
This is the pessimistic part, though. Let's not focus on that part. Like, there are many good things, but do some stuff before February. Have fun.
As a stay-at-home dad, do you collect any resources, whether it's online, in person? Are there any stay-at-home dad groups or meetings or, I don't know, any of those type of things where you can just gain knowledge or insight or wisdom from someone else or from some other people? Or
no.
No.
There are, I'm sure. Charlotte Agenda actually a couple years ago wrote a story about dads. I think it was about stay-at-home dads in particular. This idea that like moms groups are everywhere, or you go to the library and it's all moms and nannies and I'm the only man, or that sort of thing. Like, it's a very, I think for me, like when I go out, I see moms if we leave the house. So we don't leave the house very often, and I've invested in like online groups or text messages to interact with other adult men. Because it's such a small subset of society, lots of S's, that have chosen to like be home with their kids. It's hard to find. I'm sure there are Facebook groups or websites, but for me in particular, I haven't joined any. Abby is a part of several moms groups, and so she tells me what to do in a very loving way, about like, okay, well, we need to not use the breast milk at this time of day now, we need to use it this time of day, because she's so plugged into that stuff.
Sure.
I don't care. Like, as long as Nora's alive at the end of the day, I've done my job well. So, but yeah, I'm not in any groups like that. There was a time where there was a few stay-at-home dads that I talked to on Twitter, but just...
Like, there's not a hashtag SAHD that you can check
I'm sure there
every
is.
once in a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
More often, I think it's jokes about how terrible it is to be a stay-at-home dad, which is all fun and good. But I think, I don't know if this is true in general, but I really connect with guys over sports and comic movies and that sort of books, church stuff, that sort of thing, instead of parenting, because I don't think it's a priority for a ton of men. Not in a bad way, just it's not the thing that they talk about the most.
Right.
But for moms, it's like they're number one. This thing came out of them and became a human, so it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, totally.
So I find most of my community talking to men about other things.
Yeah.
And then if they are also dads, well, great, let's talk about our kids.
So for any potential stay-at-home dads watching, any aspiring stay-at-home dads, do you have any recommendations for them, like as a dad or as a stay-at-home dad, not necessarily for them to do, not like a tip to do with their kid, but like for them to do for themselves?
If you can make the finances work, be a stay-at-home dad. Finances are hard for everybody, everywhere, especially in cities. It's just difficult to make ends meet when you only have one income anymore. And especially with wage gap stuff and whatever, like usually it's the man that has more money and makes it an easier choice and all that. But if you can make it work, being a stay-at-home dad means that your kids have a male role model, which they might not have otherwise in a lot of ways. You get to actually interact with your children, which most dads, I think, struggle to find time, or like not even just time, but a relationship with their kids is difficult because they're so career focused and so like otherworldly focused, like things that are pulling at them in other directions. I mean, like if you can be a stay-at-home dad and make your kids the focus of your life for that brief time that they're in it, like it's crazy rewarding. And then in a few years they go to school, and so like now we hit the reset button. Now my finish line is 2023 when Nora goes to kindergarten all day.
Right.
Unless there's another baby on the way, which Abby, you don't hear that. But yeah, so I have a new finish line, and when I get to that point, then the kids are in school and I can do another job or try to do more freelance or entrepreneur stuff. So if you can make it work, do it.
And then you're specifically saying stay-at-home dad, not saying you should be a stay-at-home parent and have mom stay home.
Well,
either,
if moms are listening, then moms should do it if they want to. But if you're a dad, if you're a human being, like having more time to spend with your kid over pursuing a career that you'll have a chance to pursue again later, I recommend it. It's not for everybody. I think a lot of people, like my wife in particular, would go crazy being at home as much as I am, because I'm at home a lot. Like some days I don't leave the house at all, and I don't get to interact with adults. Maybe that's the more pessimistic part. It's hard to be a stay-at-home dad. It's hard to be a stay-at-home mom when you're used to interacting with adults and now you're interacting with a baby. It's pretty different.
Sure.
So, but for some people, I think it's a really great option.
Yeah.
For us, it's been great. All of Abby's coworkers think she's crazy for letting me stay at home and not bring in another income. But we've just kind of made it work.
Yeah, I think you're
put a
crazy
priority on
too.
it. I am crazy. It's nuts. I don't know why I do. No, it'd be great to have another income, let alone like adult interaction during the day.
Yeah.
But we view it as this like temporary, you'll never get these years with your kids back sort of thing, and it's worked for us really well.
That's good. So not from a stay-at-home dad perspective, but just as being a dad. I'm about to be a dad.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to tell me?
Man, you're so screwed. No, it changes your life in ways you wouldn't expect.
Okay.
It's good. There's a lot of difficulty giving up, like I said before, things that you just assumed were part of life. This is weird to like be talking to you about something so serious.
I know.
But yeah, it's a good change. Embrace it. Your wife is also going to go through some crappy hormonal stuff, and life is going to be miserable for a while. So make sure that you guys have a good relationship in that way. I think all husbands and wives, when they have that first kid, need to work on their marriage relationship. Even when we have our second kid, Abby and I had a 4-hour conversation last night because we don't talk anymore. Because we don't have time to talk. Because we're taking care of a baby or trying to fit in work stuff that otherwise would have fit in other places. So as long as you're finding time to still build your marriage, make sure that's still good, because it's going to change a lot. And then some of those things that you loved to do before, you're not going to be able to do, and that has to be okay. I think those are the big things. For me, it was just being able to go out at night with my wife and talk to her as an adult losing that was a big deal for us, and it's why we're so excited to have family moving here soon, so that we can have babysitters and sort of these like date nights that are really important. But yeah, life's going to change a lot. I think that's the big thing, that you don't see it coming, but it's a good thing. It's a good change, but it's a huge change, like dramatic change. Noah's going to screw up your entire life, and you're going to love him for it, so it's a good thing.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Cool. I mean, that's definitely it. So yeah, thank you for joining this episode of First Time Dad. Thank you, Johnny, for coming along and just telling me more about being a stay-at-home dad. And thanks for tuning in, and see you next time. Peace.